All right, welcome to the drawing demonstration. And let's talk a second about the goal of these drawing demonstrations in the course. Basically, the idea behind it is that first of all, obviously, I want to show you how to draw the figure or how to draw a portrait real time, so that you once see how I approach the process from start to finish. But obviously, as you draw and you get better and better, with each mark you make, more and more thinking and preparation and complexity goes into the mark that you make. So with each mark, I might think about, the measuring aspect of it. Is it the right angle? Is it the correct size in relationship to all the other shapes, forms, lines? Does it have the right curvature? But I also at the same time might think about the design of it and how it relates to the overall shape design of the image I'm creating. I might also think about the composition, about the value structure, etc., etc. So a lot goes into each mark, especially as you get better and layer on more and more drawing fundamentals, and you study the drawing fundamentals until they become subconscious. So what I'm trying to say is that I can't possibly explain everything I do in detail while I do it. That being said, I want to focus each drawing demonstration on the topics we covered previously. So in this one, I will focus more heavily on tonal and linear mark making, and point out to you where I use it and where I use all these marks that we practice through these specific exercises in the previous section, so that you get a good idea of, I've been practicing these linear mark making exercises, but where do I actually use them when I draw? So that's what this video is about. At the same time though, in each drawing demonstration, I will point out the general process, and I might deviate a little bit into other drawing fundamentals, even if we haven't covered them yet, because I think either way, it will only help you to be exposed to the other drawing fundamental ideas as much as possible, and to see the process a few times. So hopefully then by the end of the course, not only will you have covered all the drawing fundamentals, but you would have also seen them in action in actual drawing demonstrations several times. And then each demonstration focuses more heavily on the two or so drawing fundamentals that were covered in the previous sections. So yeah, I think like that you will definitely take a lot of away from these demos. Because obviously there's a million things you could cover, because figure drawing, portrait drawing is such a huge, such a rich art form. So you could talk about thousands of nuances. But I think for learning purposes, you'll see there's a reoccurring process with each of the demos, and there's certain things to think about in each step of the process. And I'll try and show you where the drawing fundamentals you just learned, where do they apply. And with linear mark making, tonal mark making, what's cool about it is it really applies at every step of the process. So it's one of those skills that it's basically what drawing is. It's making a mark on paper, and you'll see now how that matters in the drawing process. So with having said that, let's get into it. So the first step of the process, and that's pretty much always, the very first step is to actually look at the reference for a little bit, and to take a moment to really see actually what you're drawing, and to look at what is your first impression when you see the reference or the subject, and assuming it's something you chose because you like the look of it, it's maybe tuning into why do you actually like looking at it, and why do you feel compelled to draw it. So this reference, for example, I chose because I thought it kind of had a cool dynamic to it, like the form of the upper body. I think it has a cool light contrast compared to the lower one. So I think it will be cool to essentially show that value contrast between the upper back and then the legs, etc. So I think it's a pose that allows for a lot of value contrast, which is nice. And I think it just overall has like a nice design to it, the curvature, etc. So I'm going to try and bring that up. And you might want to think too a little bit, like, what do you notice? What do you see? And already at this stage, I'm already trying to plan a bit. So I might think, okay, the brightest bright will be on the upper back, and then it should gradate down from there onwards because it's a light that comes from the top, etc., etc. So these are all little things already to think about. But then once you took that time to look at it, it's also time to then get into the drawing. And then the first step is always the lay-in. And I'm just going to start now, and I won't talk while I draw, but then I'll get back into speaking mode here and there and to point out to you what I'm doing. So, so the goal of the lay-in first of all, in terms of mark making, what you can see is that I hold the pencil towards the end of it, not completely the end, but somewhere where I feel like I can still draw accurately, because it's somewhat similar to a tripod grip, the writing grip, where in the end, I feel like I'm the most accurate. But it's still far enough away so that the lines are really light, because what ideally I want to get in this stage is a rough lay-in that's really light, that gives me enough information on the page, so that I have enough on there to actually then take a second to judge all the measurements I did, like overall, is there anything off in my drawing? The size of the shoulder in relationship to the arms, is it correct? The size of the head in relationship to the upper body, is that correct? Are there any curves, any lines in my lay-in that read badly or that are badly designed, etc.? But before I can really get to that correction and tweaking stage, I need something on paper. And that's what the lay-in is for. And your eye has a much easier time seeing mistakes between your reference and your drawing if you already have a lot of information on the page. But it's a slippery slope, because if at this stage you would now hold it here and overcommit to a bunch of these lines, yes, you would have even more to judge by, because maybe you have darker lines, etc. But you can also not correct them anymore. And unless you are, extremely well practiced, advanced, etc., most of us will make mistakes in the lay-in phase. And maybe there are also some days where your hand is just a bit shaky and you just don't make, your marks are not always on point first time you try. So this approach really creates a bigger margin of error. It allows you to make mistakes in the lay-in phase, because in the end, it's just very light lines that you can correct later. So let me finish now the lay-in, and then I will show you what's next in the next stage. But for now, remember, the lay-in, I use an HB pencil, again, because it's a lighter pencil. I use it and I grip it like that. And like this I have a good balance between accuracy, but on the other hand also a light line. And that's what I want. So let's keep going for now. So as you can see, what I'm doing now is I already feel like I have the majority of the post down. So now actually I want to spend a little bit more, on the one hand, time checking, are the proportions overall, do they fit? You know, is the size of the torso correct, size of the legs, etc. Does this negative shape here read like it reads in the reference? Does this negative space here read like it does in the reference? And for example, I see actually it doesn't. It should be a bit more like that, for example. And correct these little things. And then when I'm confident, for some of them I might, for example, is the shape of this boxer, of this underwear, like it is in the reference. And for example, I think it's not exactly like that. It starts a bit further down, and then goes up here. That angle is a bit more like this. So I think that. So I'm checking these things, and when I'm happy with it, I decide, okay, I can commit a bit more on certain lines, and decide, and that's again where your mark making practice comes in. Does it have a curved shape, or does it have a straight? Is it a straight line? Is it a curved line, or is it an S line, or some combination essentially? And then start to be a little bit more committal. So for example, here in the leg, I can see that up here there's a slight curve, then it goes into a reverse. You could almost think of it in an S line, and then here you could either think of it as a long curve, but you could probably also design it with straights. It's a little bit up to you. So it's like one curve, and then before the knee there's a little dent where I'll just go a bit more for a straight line, and then it curves downwards, and then here it's pretty much a straight. Here's a little curve for that little bump, and reverse curve again, and then here again a curve, and then here again a curve. And as you can see, as you then start committing, the shape becomes clearer of the whole drawing, and the more the shape becomes clearer, the easier it becomes to judge the rest. So at this stage, once the lay-in is, the first laying is there, you start to commit more to the lay-ins, and you start to design the lines with straight lines, curved lines, S lines. And what combination of those lines you use really determines the look and feel of your drawings. If you if you use a lot of straights, it feels more angular, more masculine. If you use a lot of curves, it feels a bit more feminine, a bit more soft. So it just also depends a little bit on how you want to design what you're looking at, and what look you like as well. So that's something you have to experiment with, and maybe as you look at your favorite artists through that lens of mark making, you might realize, oh, my favorite artist that I like uses a lot of curved lines actually, so let me try that, or study his drawings a bit, or you look at another one, say, yeah, but I like how he uses or she uses straight lines for that part of the body. And that's how you start collecting like design preferences from your favorite artists, because you realize they actually use these concepts to make design decisions. And notice at this stage you already have the chance to create a lot of form in your drawing. So for example, the line of the boxer, it follows the form of the hips. So for example, in this section, by drawing this line a bit curved, and then by going into the reverse, you'll later have a much easier time to kind of shade that area, and it will show this bump more and more. So this is already like something to pay attention to at this phase here as well. Because in the end, how these, how the boxer flows, how the underwear flows over the upper leg depends on the form of the upper leg. So already in this contour, you can start to build in the form essentially. So I'm gonna try and see how. Obviously, ideally, if you can make the marks like long, confident, smooth, that's always better than doing small, hatchy marks if possible. And of course, this comes with practice, and then there sometimes daily you'll have a variance in how confident you feel, etc. So you can also build it up slowly and then clean it up, clean everything up in the shading process. But definitely, as you make your marks, try and always go for continuous long marks. Etc. Okay. So now one thing I want to look at is this negative. You can think of it as a negative shape between the lower end of the arm and the boxes. So let's have a look at that shape, that negative space it's called. That's about okay. Needs a bit more of Right. So as you can see, I'm getting closer and closer to be done with the outline phase. I actually have to finish the back quickly. Too much into the details here. Okay, so let me have a look. That's also important to take breaks once in a while, and to just take a second to look at it, to see, what could be, what in the design maybe doesn't read so clearly right now, what could be better, etc., etc. So for example, I think the curvature of the upper back could be a bit more exaggerated and pronounced, because like this right now it feels a little bit flat. It's kind of something in the gesture, I would say. Etc., etc. Maybe this feels a bit towards the... Okay, so at this stage, basically, probably what I would do next is start putting in the... I mean, there are different ways you could go about it. You could also say, hey, I want to create some more commitment in my lines before I go into shading, and that means that I might pick certain lines and make them darker. But I think in this case here, it helps to get into the line that separates the light from the shadow, because it will help put in some more information, for example here, for the drawing to read a bit more clearly. Then slowly, I think it already makes sense to put a little bit of shadow here. And for that again, I go back into the back end grip and I just start laying in the first layer of tone very lightly. Etc. Just again to put more information in, because again it will help me judge the drawing once I see a bit of the value. Can see slowly now I'm also holding the pencil a bit more towards the top, towards the tip, as I'm committing more and more to the lines, because now I'm becoming more and more sure those are the the lines that make sense. While I commit, again, I always remeasure, always try and recheck the design of my marks.